It's time for Seoul Patch Reviews.
Hey
or whatever.
guys, we're back again here for another little talk about television. So Kev, what have you been watching lately?
So one thing that I remember after we did our TV episode was we missed a huge genre of Korean TV, which is the saguk, the Korean, the history dramas.
Right.
And I after recording that episode and thinking about it, I can't believe we missed that, left that out because it's massive.
I
It's
know. I
massive.
think I said like one of the four major food groups, and that was I didn't even mention that one. Like how
Yeah, how
that's
did we miss
like
it?
literally carbohydrates or something, like
It's
it's it's
it's
it's
yeah,
huge.
it's so big. And
Yeah.
so yeah, my wife and I recently binged what is it? It's Otsome Burgun Gutdong in Korean. It's the sleeve, the red sleeve. I think it's just the red sleeve, or sometimes the red sleeve cuffs, because the cuffs of the sleeve.
Mm.
And that's referring to the gumyo, the palace women, the palace ladies. They would wear basically a hanbok, a uniform that had red cuffs. And so that's what it's referring to. And basically, it's a historical genre based at the end of the 1700s. And this historical genre is kind of cool, or this specific show is really cool because it's completely based on a true story. Unlike a lot of the other ones, it's apparently it was written or based from a book, but it's based on the actual life of this king and his consort, or the woman who would later become his consort, which is a spoiler, but again, you kind of know what happens from story one.
Right.
And actually, right from like probably episode 3 or 4, because I love historical genres, especially ones that are kind of true, because then I immediately like started getting on Wikipedia. I was like, wait, who is this king? And I started wanting to learn more about them. So this is a great one because it's based on it's based on a true story, and it is a sad story. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right here off the start. But
Mhm.
it's an amazing show. It's a fantastic show. There's the two main actors in it. First is Lee Jun-ho, who is playing Isan, who he later becomes Jeongjo the king, Jeongjo the Great. Actually, one of the only two kings who has the Great in his title. Actually,
Mm.
he's considered actually a great king of Korea. He did a lot of really progressive things for Korea. If you've ever been down to Suwon and you've been to Hwasong Fortress, he commissioned that to be built, for example. Like I said, I binged, I went through a lot of the Wikipedia after watching it.
Yeah.
So in Lee Jun-ho, he's been doing a few genres now, but this is the first time I'd seen him. He's actually one of the members. He's one of the guys, like many are K-pop idols, who turned into actors. And he was
Oh.
in the group 2 p.m. actually. So
Oh
he's one of
yeah.
these like super handsome guys, but damn, dude can act. Dude can act like
Yeah.
really well. I've actually watched another drama with him recently as well, and that was quite different. But this one, I think his acting in it was really amazing. I think all of the acting in this show was quite good, but especially the two mains. So Lee Jun-ho, who is kind of the king, or will become the king. He's prince for most of the series. And and it's a very serious genre, and it shows his depth of character. I think he did a really good job of portraying the role of how serious it is to be, dealing with the drama of being in a palace, while at the same time dealing with like love stories, and it's not really a love story, but I'll get back to that in a minute. And so his acting was great. I'm so jealous of people who are just amazingly handsome and good singers and good actors, and like, this guy's got it all.
Just touched, by
Yeah,
God
he
himself, right?
he pretty much has that. And then
Yeah.
and then he he's not handsome. My wife is peeping in. I, oh, apparently. Oh, interesting extra part. Apparently, in 2 p.m. in the group that he was in, I'm being told that he was considered to be the least attractive of the
Right.
group. Um,
Well,
I didn't know that,
yeah.
so that's good information. Thanks. So then his counterpart was the actress was Lee Se-young, and she played Deok-im. It's a really old name. Deok-im is the character's name.
Yeah, this
And
sounds
she
old.
basically, yeah, it's a very old school name, especially
Yeah.
for like, I've never heard any name even similar to that in Korean
Yeah.
for girls' names. And she's like a pretty well-known actress. She's been an actress apparently since she was relatively young as well. This isn't her first saga, from what I understand. And she plays the part of Deok-im, who basically is one of the palace. ladies, one of the women who work in the palace, and their job is basically to serve the king or prince or anyone in there, and they devote their entire lives to that. Like they're not allowed to live outside the palace. They basically only live there. They're never allowed to get married. Their life is devoted to the king, even though of course his life is not devoted to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of follows her life and the king's life, and how they become intertwined. And you might think this is somewhat of a romance show because it's about how they kind of come together. And like I said, I looked on the Wikipedia and immediately I'm like, oh, she becomes his consort later in life. But it's not a love story. It's really not a love story, because throughout the show she's constantly being like, no, I don't want to be your concubine, because that sucks. Like then I'm just, like one of your women, right? And I don't want that to be my life. Like I'm and so she turned him down a bunch of times. And that's what made this show so amazing, is because it's based on this true story of this true woman who really did all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they dramatize things and whatnot, but
right.
Following, this woman who's basically telling the king, like, no, I don't want to do that,
right.
is an epic
Especially
story.
in this moment in history is kind of resonates probably
and
quite a bit with
and
audience
it's really
members.
even harder for women at the time, because this is still during Joseon period, where it's still very Confucian.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so she was very much like almost a Confucian feminist, if such a thing exists
right.
at the time. Like she was a
well,
great
she was
character.
like exercising agency at a time where women didn't have much agency, and so it's kind of jarring or whatever to see that or to read about it, I imagine.
Right. Yeah. So seeing them like interacting, and it's more about watching how their relationship grows over the time, and then eventually how they get together. And again, what's really amazing about this is that Jeongjo, the king, he actually was apparently completely in love with her, and she was actually his only like consort, until, well, other things happen which aren't really so important in for the drama, but it happens in history. And that's the one thing, is that this show has an epic sad ending. I'm just gonna tell that there. Like I'm not gonna tell you exactly what happened at the end, but I will tell you that I was in tears.
There's no happily ever after in this one, huh?
No, but this is one of the good examples of a show where even though it's a sad ending, it's a good ending.
Yeah,
like they did it really well, I think. Although I will say that the last like 4 episodes or so felt a bit rushed. I think like the pacing of the drama was really good at the start. Like everything just flowed really well. And then suddenly at the end, like the last 3-4 episodes, it feels like just things are jumping ahead. And I think because it was, for some reason, this show was only 17 episodes. And a lot of Korean dramas like stick to like a 20 episode kind of format. And I think that 20 would have been helpful for this had they given it just a little bit more.
I feel the same way when I'm watching a drama. How are you gonna land this plane? And sometimes it's bumpy, and sometimes it's really smooth, but yeah.
And this one, again, it did land very well, but those last couple episodes just were a little bit fast. And then you get to that last episode, and the last episode is like an hour and a half. And the thing is, you're committing to a movie, and it's an hour and a half, but it's the saddest hour and a half. My wife had a pile of tissue next to us. She got obsessed with this show after as well, and just get on the like online forums and was just seeing what people were saying. Yeah. And some woman commented that she was like, "I've never seen my dad cry, and he was bawling at the end of this." And so
I got something in my eye that's
so it was a amazingly true story, an amazingly well told story. There is some kind of weird subplots that happen in the middle, which I think were a bit strange. There's kind of this like, my wife was telling me, because again, it's fun watching it with my wife, because she's like, oh yeah,
she can give you some
she gives
context.
me like little insights into Korean culture and things like that. And she was saying that how the palace ladies, basically, they had a ton of politics within their own ranks, of course, right? Like their job is to take care of the king, but they want higher ranks amongst themselves, and so there was a lot of politics. And so there was this kind of subplot, and don't want to tell you too much about this, because this is a kind of a big spoiler that's not true and not like on the Wikipedia. But there's this crazy subplot that's happening among the ranks of the palace women, and it almost to me felt too outside. It felt like a plot that they created out of completely nothing, and then once it resolved, it was just done, and it never went anywhere. It was still an interesting story, and it was kind of fun to see it, but it felt not connected to the rest of the story so much. That would be probably my only complaint, for lack of a better word.
Sure. If you're looking for something to critique, that would be the, you know, it's a minor thing, but you know, it sounds like overall you really enjoyed the show, though.
Oh, we just, I mean, it was, yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, it's 17-hour-long episodes, and we probably finished it over the course of 4 days or something.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
that. It's nice being on winter vacation still.
Yeah.
We're using our time well, maybe, but yeah, we couldn't turn it down. I mean, the acting was amazing. It brought me really into the world. It taught me a bit about Korean history as well, because like I said, this is all based on a true story, like true people, and so I immediately dug into the Wikipedia pages and things. And of course they do take a few small liberties with the fact it's not 100% true, but it's pretty damn accurate. From my quick research on Wikipedia, and then my wife, again, she watched some like talk on YouTube from some actual history professor talking about it as well, and she was saying that it's you know, there's that guy knows more about it than Wikipedia does, and she was saying that it's quite accurate from that.
That's interesting, because you don't watch those shows for depth and understanding necessarily. You watch them to capture the essence of the time period and maybe a bit of the personality of the character. You know,
it's just that these characters and these specific kings, and just it's just such an epic story that there's no reason to mess with it. Like it works as it is, and it's great, and there's really no reason to completely change things. Just tell this true story, because it is an amazing true story. Like a king who, because then I started looking at all the other kings, you know, I was just randomly clicking through Wikipedia, and you look back at like King Sejong, and he's got like, you know, 10 concubines and like 3 wives and like 100 kids. I'm exaggerating, of course. But then you look at King Jeongjo, and although he was married a couple of times, really the only one he was ever with was Deok-im. And so it's this true love story. Like he really did love this woman who was his court lady, and she kept, you know, pushing him back, but he was like a very rare king as far as kings go. Like he was a very good king. Like I said, he's Jeongjo the Great in Korea. He did some really good things.
The interesting thing is, it sounds like they're both shackled by their own responsibility. Like if they'd have met in any other circumstances, they could have just been a regular couple, you know, in love and together. But they're burdened by these positions that they're placed in by the culture, by the politics, and you know, enslaved by the politics. So it's a forbidden love. That's why I think it's probably so interesting. But in a more interesting way than a lot of those like kind of, you know, smarmy dramas are. This sounds much more interesting. So
it was great. I would highly recommend this. This was an amazing show. I mean, I like the saga because I like these historical dramas in general. I think the first Korean show I ever watched was a historical drama. They're terrible for listening practice because it's all this crazy old Korean.
Oh, right. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, something interesting about Saguk is that like the old Korean, like I'm sure you've seen it, they actually put up a Korean subtitle for Korean people watching it, because they're using old Korean vocabulary that even modern day Korean people are like, what's that word? And so they pop it up. So for me, it's unfortunately like I can't understand half of what they're saying, or I mean more than half. Right.
But
it's probably like watching Shakespeare or something, like it's equivalent.
Kind of. Yeah, probably. But no, it's a great show. I would highly recommend it for people to watch, and I've got another saga drama that is also really fun and completely different that we can talk about maybe in a couple of weeks.
We'll talk about that again. So grade, what would you on the you know?
This is for me definitely it's like a A minus. That that strange plot. No, this is definitely an A.
Okay.
These guys.
So in baseball terms, is that a triple or a home run?
I'd say they knocked it out of the park. They did a pretty amazing job, or maybe a what's they called?
It's like how about an in the park home run, maybe something like that, right?
Like that.
Yeah. Okay. In the park home run.
It was amazing. The acting was great. The story was great. The soundtrack is actually really, really well made. I actually put it on just because I was curious, and we had it on in the background. It's good background music. But they put a lot into this. I think it's a very well done show. So recommend it. Check it out. The Red Sleeve.
The Red Sleeve. When did it come out? What year?
This was last year. It was either last year or 2020. It was relatively. I think it was
a
last
new
year.
one. Okay.
It's quite new. I think it got some awards. It got a lot of praise. I think it was last year. I think it was the end of last year. Yeah, it was. No, it was definitely the end of last year. So
awesome.
New show.
New.
It's great.
Yeah.
You can check it out. I'm sure you can check it out somewhere online. There's many places.
All right, there you go, everybody. Another excellent recommendation. You can check
let me
us
know
out.
if anyone has any comments about what you think as well. You can
send us an email. Yeah, you can contact us right through the website, theseoulpatch.com, or you could leave a comment in YouTube, or you can send us an email at podcast@theseoulpatch.com. So if you got any comments about the red sleeve, hit us up on Facebook as well. We're up on Facebook, and I've got the videos up on Facebook too. So you can send us messages right there. All right. Thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.